When times get tough, do you ever wish you could just push that reset button and just start all over again? We've all thought it.
Flush, right?
Yeah, we've all thought about it and wish we could do it from time to time. But be careful what you wish for, because scientists are now working to make these wishes a reality. It may sound like something out of a science fiction film, but believe it or not, scientists are working on implanting microchips into human brains to delete memories. Prototypes for the chip are allegedly being tested on epilepsy patients in hospitals with good results. But the creator hopes to one day expand this chip, not just for the sick, but for the healthy population, where users could remove experiences and, get this, buy new ones. The chip is predicted to be as common as cell phones in the future. Are you ready?
I don't think our audience wants to get chipped anytime soon.
Well,
right?
and FYI, Kernel is the firm responsible for developing this. They hope the device will be used to help those with degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's one day. So there is a medical bent to this, because it could be not only erasing memories, but maybe helping people remember. You know, there's a lot of potential here, a lot of potential for misuse.
I think there's more misuse potential than there is benefit. Because
Right.
I have two major concerns here.
Science.
Starting reading.
A revolutionary, potentially life-saving microchip has been developed to forewarn patients suffering from heart problems of any deterioration in the condition. Reg Youngman is one of the first to try the microchip. A tiny microsensor has been inserted into his pulmonary artery, which monitors his heart function. Every day he's scanned and his data is sent to the hospital. If there's any indication of a problem, the doctors identify it and take appropriate action.
Earlier this week, Michelle Greenstein brought me, and brought you actually, a report on the coming cashless society. And we talked about eye scans, remember, and finger scans and facial scans, and how we're likely to see a future where your biometric information is linked to every transaction that you make. And we also showed you 40 different countries that have already developed some sort of biometric ID grid. But while looking into this, Michelle found a story that she thinks deserves a segment of its own. This one is about microchips, but not just microchips. Microchips being inserted into the bodies of human beings. So Michelle joins us now to tell us about this coming cashless society and how that might affect it as well. This is kind of creepy, but I can't wait to hear more about it. So microchips in human bodies. Do tell.
So these are radio frequency identification chips, or RFID.
Yeah.
This is the same exact technology that right now we have in most of our debit and credit cards. We also have a number of states, New York, Vermont, Michigan, that have already adopted an RFID chip program for their driver's licenses. And as more states sign on to this, this may become mandatory in the U.S. But let's talk about these chips, like you can see here, in your bodies. Look, with all technology, you have good and bad sides, right?
Microchips implanted in human bodies could transform the way we tackle many everyday tasks. Some workers in Sweden are already developing and volunteering to have chips injected into their hands. The technology can make some tasks easier and reduce the amount of personal items employees need to carry. John Blackstone looks at the controversial trend and how it could put your privacy at risk.
In a Stockholm business complex, employees gain access not with key cards, but with a wave of a hand.
This is something that you can use just like a key badge.
At a recent tech conference, Hannes Sjöblad explained how a microchip implanted in his hand makes his life easier. It replaces all the keys and cards that used to clutter his pockets.
I use this many times a day. For example, to unlock my smartphone, to open the door to my office.
Sjöblad calls himself a biohacker.
We biohackers, we think that the human body is a good start, but there is certainly room for improvement.
The first step in that improvement is getting a microchip about the size of a grain of rice slipped under the skin. Suddenly, the touch of a hand is enough to tell the office printer, this is an authorized user.
It felt pretty scary, but at the same time it felt very modern.
The microchips are radio frequency identification tags, the same technology widely used in things like key cards. The chips have been implanted in animals for years to help identify lost pets. Now the technology is moving to humans. A tech startup called Dangerous Things has sold tens of thousands of implant kits for humans, some to tech companies in Europe. Showblad even organizes implant parties where people can bond over getting chipped together.
I love gadgets, and now I kind of feel like I'm a gadget myself.
Even a car door can be tweaked to open with a touch, but each touch leaves a digital footprint, and that can compromise privacy.
I love this big board.
Oh,
topic.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a
That's why
big
you came
move
back.
at an office that could change the way a lot of Americans work. A tech company in Wisconsin is offering to implant tiny microchips into its employees.
Not just but no. The chips could allow people to unlock office doors, make purchases. Rebecca, come on here.
So many questions about this, Robin
So
and
many.
Michael. Good morning. We asked a lot of them. This is the first American company to ever try this. 1 week from today, many of the employees, including the CEO, will voluntarily have the microchips implanted into their bodies, and they're calling it, I'm not kidding here, a chips and salsa party.
This morning, like a scene straight out of 007.
So you can keep an eye on me?
Employees at one Wisconsin tech company, 3 Square Market, willingly making that fantasy a reality, implanting their own bodies with microchips.
Todd Westby might just have a hand in shaping the future. The CEO of vending machine maker 3 Square Market literally opening doors with automation that's turning some workers into high-tech machines of sorts.
This is a lot more than just some sort of novelty to you.
It is. It's reality. With all of the interest we've seen in it, I can tell this is definitely the future.
By injecting a rice-sized microchip into a willing employee's hand, all kinds of data can be programmed into them, from driver's licenses and medical ID cards to logging onto computers.
You have to hold it up to something such as this.
Even purchasing snacks in the company break room. More than 50 employees have volunteered.
How much did that hurt?
Didn't really hurt a lot.
A third holding off for now.
It kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Some experts suggest caution. Among the concerns, ID theft, health, and whether the chips can be tracked by GPS.
Most people don't really understand how this technology works, what data is collected, how it's stored, or who might be able to get access to it legally or illegally.
3 Square says their employees cannot be tracked by satellite.
So let's switch gears a little bit. So you have something else that's really interesting in the newsletter about people in Sweden putting implants, microchips, right,
Yes.
into them. We've seen something like this here. There was a company that
In Wisconsin,
right,
yeah.
so they could get stuff out of the vending machine with
Yeah.
these microchips. So what's happening in Sweden?
So basically in Sweden over the past couple of years, several thousand people have had these little rice grain sized microchips put into their hands, which contain information that they can use to, say, check into the gym or get into the office or pay for train tickets, right? So on the one hand, everyone can appreciate that that's convenient, right? How many times have you been looking for your key fob at the gym or can't remember your password for something? But I think the bigger question here is, look, as the human body itself becomes a technological platform, right, there are big questions we need to consider about what kind of information is put out about us, from us, quite literally, and also further down the line, what kind of access do other people or platforms have to that information that is inside us, right? This is a biotech question, this kind of blurring of the lines between the human body and tech. I mean, it's one thing if you're holding your smartphone and it's sort of emitting data about you. It's another thing if your own hand is doing the same thing.
So like 3,000 people signed up for this. Are they not as concerned about hacking and privacy and all the things that we can't stop talking about over here?
Yeah,
Using public transport, getting access to buildings and paying for coffee is now as simple as a touch of your hand. A microchip implanted beneath the skin gives people the same capabilities as dozens of cards and devices. And it's not as painful as you might think.
What was once confined to science fiction movies.
This may be a little uncomfortable. Just implanted a radium diode. They're the access codes to your drop spot.
Is now reality for some.
I can pay, open doors, and have my business card in there as well.
These Aussies say they're being microchipped to simplify their lives.
Which will connect to my work pass, which will allow me access to my office, to use the printer, to use the scanner.
We won't need any ID.
cards, we won't need any PIN codes, access cards or anything, so we can live a much sort of freer life.
The microchip is the size of a grain of rice and the procedure takes just 15 minutes. First, the area is sterilised, then the location marked. The chip is then placed inside a hollow needle and inserted underneath the skin. Data from your bank card, payment method, building swipe, LinkedIn profile or medical history is cloned onto the chip, which is implanted in the hand. Using the same technology as tap and pay cards, the chip can then be used to open security doors, pay for a coffee, use public transport and access information you've programmed onto the chip. This Perth body modification artists already embrace the trend.
I have a business card on one I have just for funny images to load up on people's phones randomly, and one of them I use for being able to operate and open a door lock. We'll turn off the immobiliser.
32-year-old Joeltron has even built a motorbike which can be immobilised just by the touch of his hand.
Easy as that.
Designer Eric Frisk doesn't need a key to unlock his door. It opens electronically. In fact, he doesn't even need a key card or a fingerprint. He just swipes a digital reader with the back of his hand. The invisible door unlocker is hidden between the thumb and forefinger of his left hand, a microchip that Frisk had implanted under his skin.
Me and my best friend stopped.
His girlfriend recently had herself chipped as well. It has many other uses besides unlocking the door. They can also store e-tickets for the train, for example. And that's just the beginning for this couple.
But I think the interesting thing is when the chips start getting smarter and start having, sensors and things like that. So instead of just opening a door, maybe I can continuously record my body temperature, my blood sugar levels, et cetera, and actually give me useful information about my body.
People who work here can be chipped to gain entry to the building and various services. I've just been chipped myself. It's not a painless process, but it doesn't last too long, not too difficult. Minor surgical procedure, which basically involves a little chip the size of, I suppose, of a grain of rice being inserted under your skin, and you can then go off and have it programmed and then do various things inside the building. Let's go and have a look. And here's Hannah Schaublad, who is in charge of this whole chipping operation in this building. Now, you've been chipped yourself. Where's your chip?
Yeah, I have a chip right here, which I use to access the entire office.
So let's see if we can get into this particular
This is how I do it.
Okay.
No need for passcodes.
And we're in.
I'll make a fist and squeeze the tag to the top of my skin. When I approach the device, it opens the Facebook page I set it to.
Colin Cravino has a microchip implanted in both of his hands.
Some people just look really grossed out. I put my hand up and I let them poke at it and they freak out.
Developed in the 1950s and 60s, RFID chips, short for radio frequency identification, have been used by retailers to track packages and prevent theft. Farmers use the chips to keep tabs on their livestock. Pet owners use them to identify their cats and dogs. And lately, members of the so-called body hacker movement have been implanting RFID chips under their skin, programming them to perform various tasks. Colin Cravino, a smartphone repairman in Brooklyn, New York, uses his chips to open his front door. He found them on a website called Dangerous Things that sells implant kits and offers user tips.
I came across it when I was doing research on the Samsung Deadbolt that I bought. And then the first thing that I noticed was that I could get an RFID tag